Through some of the stories of the ones we're going to be covering throughout the day here on Sky News. Theologian Vicky Beeching and author Don Nichol back with us. Let's start though with this Cinderella law, this possible law which the government may be looking at, may be announcing in the Queen's speech to protect children against emotional abuse. I mean, it's a difficult one. Everyone knows what the right thing to do is, but how you lock it into a legal framework.
But how do you legislate for it? You know, if you look at some of the cases of physical abuse that we've seen recently, Baby P, some of the others, all of them have involved emotional abuse as well. And the brutality is just hideous and horrifying. But with the Baby P story, you can see, and there's a tragedy and a result at the end. With emotional abuse, there is no physical manifestation. It's very difficult to prove. It's very difficult to show. And so how do you legislate for that? How do you physically write a law?
There has to be a way. I mean, I think that is the problem, isn't it? You can often write it off and say, well, you can't measure emotional abuse, but the lasting damage, I think, can often even be greater, can't it?
Because it's difficult doesn't mean you shouldn't do something about it.
So we have to find some kind of metric, some kind of way of hearing people's testimonies and stories and clamping down on this.
It's interesting what our expert was saying just a short time ago, that you know, it's a vicious circle. You get that actually with a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse as well, that it's people who are abused who become abusers. And so she was looking at a holistic approach of saying you need to help the entire family rather than try and, you know, separate the perpetrators and the victims.
It sounds so joined up and sensible, but that's just not the kind of stuff that normally happens, is it?
And if you're going to do this, you need money and resources, something that the government is short of on both accounts, whether you agree with that or not. And the chances of something real... I agree with you, we should do something. It's terrible to see this happening to young children and to older children as well.
But you need to be able to do it.
You have to be able to do it.
You do. I love that idea of the whole
piecemeal.
family. I mean, I think it's very important to remember that abusers often themselves are very broken people. It doesn't excuse what they do, but actually they need to be helped as much as they need to be punished. So, like you say, I mean, it would cost vast amounts of money, but actually you could work with whole families and whole communities and really help everybody.
Well, we're going to be chasing more reaction to this throughout the day here on Sky News, as you would expect. Talking about victims, though, what do we make of Charlize Theron, a multi-millionaire Hollywood actress, but someone who has worked with rape victims in the past, saying sometimes press intrusion against her and her family and a young child is tantamount to rape?
Yeah, that one for me is very difficult. I just don't think that word is appropriate to be used in this context. I obviously don't in any way deny her the reality of her own feelings around it. I think it's very fair to say, you know, to me this feels like X, Y or Z, but I think that word is so loaded for so many people, and it's, you know, it triggers so much. I just think that word shouldn't really be applied to anything.
Well, it's important to keep it in context. So let's just have a look at exactly what she said to Richard Suchet.
I think it's when you start living in that world and doing that you start, I guess, feeling raped.
That's strong.
Well, you know, when it comes to your son and your private life, maybe that's just me. You know, some people might relish in all of that stuff.
John?
Well, nothing can excuse the sort of press intrusion that she's talking about with being chased with her son, some terrible pictures. But there's a way around that. Kind of don't go to the Savoy, don't go to the Ritz, go somewhere else. And I'm not excusing it. But I find that to equate that with rape, the brutality, the hideous crime against predominantly females, that is rape. And then for somebody in a position of incredible privilege and wealth, that's what a lot of people watching today are thinking, and then the part of that is to promote yourself in the media. I'm not saying that everything that happens is right, but you can't equate it with rape.
But the argument that she is presumably making is that it's not just about when you're going out to the, you know, the Ritz or the Caprice or wherever it is that she's going, but actually she can't walk out the front door of her own house.
It can feel very abusive, and she's not the first person. Kristen Stewart has made this same comparison. Kate McCann spoke in the same way about press intrusion, publishing her diaries. So it's not been said before. I just think it's one of those words that you have to handle so carefully for the sake of those who have been most affected by it. For some women,
it's quite hard for us to be put in her shoes in the same way it's hard for her to be put in the shoes of a rape victim. And you know, it's quite hard to judge when you've not had an experience.
But there are a lot of A-listers that you don't see photographs. There are a lot of massive stars, both here and in the USA, that you do not see photographed, you do not see papped. It just doesn't happen to them. Why is that?
You think they're maybe more careful? Or?
I think they're much more careful about what they do. Look, you know, I mean, there can be nothing worse than going down to the supermarket to get your potatoes and your bottle of milk and somebody shoving a camera in your face.
True.
But there are plenty of people who clearly do their shopping and you don't see them every day in their pants in the supermarket.
Well, it's interesting. Nicole Kidman's promoting a film at the moment, and she said that she's moved to Nashville because that's where her country music singer husband is from, and she doesn't get bothered there. But then when she was married to Tom Cruise and living in Hollywood, it was a goldfish bowl, and she had all of that. So
no, I actually used to live in Nashville and actually did bump into her in a cafe.
So that you didn't take any pictures.
No, the funny thing was she ordered a grande foam.
What is that?
It's just a cup full of foam.
That's
what she drank. Yep.
Revelations on Sky News this morning.
That's why she's so skinny.
That's why she's
and I was there with, you know, my hot chocolate with extra whip. Oh, what's she serving?
That's why you're so fat.
Exactly.
You should see her in real life.
As soon as we're off.
She's honestly absolutely stunning with a waist like that. Look, one of the other big stories that we're going to be covering throughout the day is the reaction that Lord Reynard issued that apology yesterday, the Lib Dem peer. A sort of apology to alleged victims, but it's not done him any good, it would seem. Let's go to Westminster to talk to our reporter Darren McCaffrey. This headache for Lord Reynard and for Nick Clegg not going away, it would seem.
Indeed, as you say, it's been a long time coming, 15 months since these allegations first surfaced, and the alleged victims all along have said they just want Lord Reynard to apologise. In fact, that was the conclusion of a report that was published several months ago, Stephen. Now that it has come in a letter that, as you say, was issued last night, many of the victims, including some that we have spoken to, simply think it really is too little, too late, and that Lord Reynard should leave public life. Now, the reason that this gets difficult for the Liberal Democrats and Nick Clegg is that, in theory, Lord Reynard has done what they asked of him, so that he should be allowed to rejoin the party in the House of Lords. But this could all come down to Nick Clegg's judgment as a leader at the end of a very difficult week. Lord Reynard's got a lot of high-profile supporters within the party, people like Lord Steele who think he should be treated fairly. But, of course, Nick Clegg has to balance that with the desires of those alleged victims for which Lord Reynard has apologised to. So another difficult judgment call for Nick Clegg at the end of what has been, it must be said, a very difficult week for him and for the Liberal Democrats.
Darren, thank you. Now, one of the big stories we need to get our head around this morning is the whole Google issue. It means if any information online that you don't want to be available in a search, you can try to stop it now. Google's not very happy, but they've been forced to do it. Our technology correspondent, Tom Cheshire, is here. It's interesting that they don't think this is a good idea.
No, well, they've slightly changed their stance and said they're trying to be more European in terms of their privacy, whatever that quite means. But they're worried if places aren't as nice as Europe. People could use this to remove information. Repressive governments could use it to remove information. I've been doing a bit of spring cleaning this morning, got rid of an embarrassing university photo, or the request is in at least. That's not really a legitimate use of it. I just wanted to see how it worked in practice. And they're going to have thousands and thousands of these requests. There is a fear that this is going to be abused.
But it's not. They're not going to have thousands and thousands. They're going to have millions and millions, and that's the problem that they've got. And what can you remove? Is it? I mean, your university.
Outdated or damaging?
Is it be damaging, outdated, something that you personally don't like? I mean, how does it work?
Well, this is it. So they've got the mechanism in place. They don't actually know how they're going to process it yet. The email I got back perky saying, "Thank you for reaching out to us." It says they're assembling reaching out. They're assembling a team of experts, they say, law experts, data privacy experts. They still haven't figured out actually how to deal with this deluge. And in the email, they also said, we expect quite a backlog of requests here, so please, be patient with us.
Removing anything, because a lot of things that pop up now in a search is things that have been posted on Twitter, of which there are millions every hour. Getting rid of those from a search, because it's not actually getting rid of them online, is it? It's just removing them from the search.
We talk about Google, of course, it's any search engine, it's not just Google,
and this
presumably.
is just European.
Yeah, it's not, it's only Google in Europe. It's not, sorry, it's any search engine in Europe, but Google has something like 90% of the search market. It does apply to Bing, it does apply to Ask Jeeves.
But it doesn't remove the content, does it? It
that's
just stops
still up
it
there.
appearing on search.
So you could access it on the black web or whatever they call it, the dark web.
The dark web is, yes, if you know the address of a web page, you can still type that in. That information will still be there. That can't be removed. That's protected, especially if it's a news organisation, under the public right to know. And Google says this is also it's a consideration it's making. It will balance this desire for privacy, this right to be forgotten, that's what they're calling it, with the right of the public to know.
Can you, if you were a rapist, can you have that forgotten? If you're a child abuser, can that be forgotten?
Well, no.
But that's the whole. But can you have it taken off a Google search?
Well, crimes can be forgotten after a certain amount of time, according to law. And previously, before Google, that would be forgotten. People wouldn't know about it because they couldn't look at you. So, you know, after 15 years, you've done a crime, you've done your punishment.
It is the equivalent. And the thing I really liked about this is they're claiming that it will actually be humans, not algorithms and computers, that will actually be processing these. That there will be a relational kind of human eye on the story, trying to figure out what's worth getting rid of and what isn't.
But if so, don't expect your photograph to be removed anytime soon.
What is the photograph?
I'm looking incredibly geeky in a
nothing wrong with that. That's me.
That's all you've got to worry about. You've got nothing to worry about.
I mean, you're doing, obviously, as well as being a big tweeter, a big social media, you're doing your doctorate in social media,
right,
aren't
yes,
you?
in the
So you
ethics
know
of
so
technology.
what is your straight on? We can't ask Tom for his opinion as a journalist.
He's not allowed an opinion.
But we can ask you, is this a good idea?
I think we need to have some kind of control, but I think the secret is actually learning to live well in a digital age. So my PhD research would lead me to believe that actually we have to take responsibility for our actions, and actually having a virtual trail, a digital shadow, is a good thing, because we and all the children growing up now have to realise that what you do has consequences. You can't just erase them.
Well, that's interesting. You can watch the progress of this here on Sky News throughout the day. Just want to talk about digital shadows. Let's just finish off, should we, with looking at Stephen Sutton once again on the front of the mirror as well, because social media. I mean, it didn't change who he was as a man, but it allowed him to get his work out there.
It did, and it's so refreshing to finally have some good news about social media. I feel so sad when we damn the tools that have an equal potential for good and harm. That's another part of my research, reminding us that the tools are actually equally capable of doing great good, like this, of spreading the message of hope and positivity and giving online. And then obviously there's, you know, trolling and cyber stalking and all the other bad sides.
Isn't it encouraging that everybody bought into
exactly.
what he was doing? That
and this is the kind of thing we need more of, don't we? More people using these tools for great good, just like he has.
But the thing that we shouldn't forget, while celebrating what Stephen did and honouring that, which is quite right, is that there are hundreds of other teenage cancer sufferers who don't get the recognition, who may have only raised £500 from their hospital bed, who may only raised £50.
Or raised nothing. No, but the interesting thing
so that's not to decry what he's, but it's to say that there are many others who don't make the front pages because of social media.
But that's to highlight what a remarkable young man Stephen was, not just because he had cancer and his attitude to it, but just his attitude to life in general was something that most of us actually never have that attitude.
Most of us, I think, would
but you
count
don't
ourselves
listen.
out,
One of my corporate presentations is you never know what you're capable of until you're hit by the hard times, of course, and that's what that's what Stephen showed. He was hit by the hard times, and this is what he came out with.
And those teenagers that aren't on the front pages, they will benefit from his legacy with all that money he's raised.
It's like he's given a face to all of them in some ways. You know, this is what young people go through, and there are many of them, and we need to now remember there are lots of other people we can help now that Stephen's gone. His legacy lives on.
Yeah, and as does his Just Giving page.
What is it now?
It's at 4,048,000.
Fantastic.
Plus, add on to that £500,000 in gift aid as well, which goes on top of that figure. So is in excess of £4.5 million in total, which is absolutely phenomenal. Keep giving today, actually. What a nice way to send support to his family, I should think. Lovely. Guys, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good
Tom,
weekend.
thank you.
Cheers.
Just to remind